I bet most people have never even heard of these movies. Today I've got a horror comedy about a rogue YouTuber, a brutal revenge flick from the same director as Oldboy, a flatulent corpse, high-stakes heist, standoffs, sharks, vampires, mind benders, and the original Fight Club from 1975, all free to watch on Tubi. But don't worry if you don't like Tubi, I'm gonna also show you where else you can currently stream these same titles. Thanks to Trainwell for sponsoring this video, but let's start at the bottom of this list with The Salvation, a highly underrated Western starring Mads Mikkelsen. Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays a great bad guy in this as well. This also stars Eva Green, and it takes place in the American West, but it was all filmed in South Africa, so it doesn't quite look right. That said though, The Salvation feels like a classic Western movie. Beautiful cinematography for a movie you've probably never heard of. And I've said it a bunch of times on the channel, we don't get a lot of great Westerns anymore, but from the past 20 years or so, this is one of the best. My number 19 pick on this list is a campy one. It's silly, but it's also a lot of fun, and it just oozes 1980s charm with Night of the Comet. This is about the end of the world. A comet passes by Earth and sort of changes people, and you kind of end up with a zombie movie with Night of the Comet, but it's got its own really unique 1980s flavor. I use the word oozes. I mean, I can't think of a better word to describe this movie. It's just got this almost like hyper 80s vibe to it that's just totally awesome. Like if you were to parody the 80s today, it would look and feel a lot like Night of the Comet, making it a fun watch, not necessarily making it a good movie.
You want to see another?
My number 18 selection for this list is not what you would call fun, but it is what you would call a good movie, and it's extremely underrated. It's titled Hard Times, and it's like the original Fight Club. Charles Bronson plays an underground fighter in this movie. James Coburn is his manager. I mean, they're just beating the hell out of each other in warehouses, on dockyards. No UFC, no jiu-jitsu, none of that. This is just good old-fashioned 1970s fistfights. And it's a short and sweet movie. It's right at 90 minutes. If you like The Hustler with Paul Newman, this is kind of like a mix between The Hustler and Fight Club. And as a big fan of Charles Bronson and movies like Fight Club, I gotta be honest, I've always wanted to look like I belonged in a movie like that, and for most of my life, I did not. But with the help of today's sponsor, Trainwell, I think I'm getting there. I mean, I'm 40 years old now, and I'm far and away in the best shape of my life, and I ran track and played football in high school. But I know for a fact at this point in my life, I would have never been able to get here without the help of my trainer with Trainwell, because that's what you get. You get a personal one-on-one trainer assigned to you. When you follow my Trainwell link in the video description, you'll take a quick quiz that will help pair you with the trainer that's right for you. Once you're paired with a trainer, you set up a Zoom call, discuss your history with exercise, your diet, just anything and everything that might help them help you. In fact, I've accomplished this without ever going to the gym. I've done most of this with body weight exercises at home and a single set of dumbbells. And that's convenient for me. I can work out anytime I want at home, but if you like going to the gym, you can literally just send your trainer a video of your gym so they can see what equipment you have. And what they're gonna do with all that information is create workouts for you. You can tell them how long you want them to be, how frequent. You're in charge, but you have an expert guiding you and helping you create workout programs that are very easy to follow. In fact, I love the app. I keep it open the entire time I work out. When there's new exercises in the mix, I can see exactly how to do the movements so I know I'm doing them right. Because honestly, if you're putting a lot of work in and not seeing results, I'd quit too. But my results with Trainwell have been so amazing. I actually signed my wife up for an account. She's been at it since January. She's older than me, and she looks better than she did when she was 22. I mean, it's outrageous. And right now, when my viewers use that link down in the video description or this QR code, you're gonna get 2 weeks free, and trust me, that is enough time for you to get addicted to Trainwell. It's a truly fantastic way to finally start getting in better shape, and it's a great deal. I highly recommend it, but speaking of things I highly recommend, let's get to the top movies on this list.
This is Sean Ruddy coming to you live from Death Manor.
Next up, I've got one of the wildest, most fun found footage movies I've watched in recent years. That's a genre that's worn pretty thin by now, but as a YouTuber myself, I got a hell of a kick out of Deadstream. In this movie, you follow a YouTuber investigating a haunted house, something I've watched quite a few times before, but this one gets wild if you can wait for it. The main character, he carries the movie. He's on camera the entire time, and he's very funny. Now, if you can't get into his character in the beginning, you're gonna have a hard time sitting through this flick. I thought he was hilarious, and this movie is filled with surprises. It's kind of like The Evil Dead, but with a GoPro mounted to a goofball's head instead. No, I did not mean for that to rhyme. If you enjoy this genre at all, little hidden gem horror flicks, Deadstream is a great one that I believe was a Shudder original, so it's been available over on Shudder and AMC+. You can catch it now on Tubi. They're slowly releasing some of those Shudder flicks over here on Tubi, and this is one of the better ones. This one and Revenge, which was on my last Tubi list. If you're looking for some raunchy, uncensored movies, watch my last Tubi list.
I don't want to be remembered as a douchebag. Somebody help me!
Believe it or not, the next selection on this list is an art house film that is about flatulence. More or less. In Swiss Army Man, Paul Dano, who's just an amazing actor, he's marooned. He's on an island. He's ready to hang himself. Like, that is the opening scene of the movie when he notices a body washed up on shore. He goes to investigate. Hopefully it's a companion, someone still alive. No, it's a dead Daniel Radcliffe. Not only is he dead, but he's a flatulating corpse. Despite this, they become the best of friends over the course of this movie as they try to figure out how to escape from this situation. Now, this is from Daniels, the same two guys that brought you Everything Everywhere All at Once. If you're into their weird style, I think you're gonna have a blast with Swiss Army Man. This is one of those movies some people absolutely love, adore, and cherish. Others just don't get it. Understandably so. My number 15 pick is an incredible thriller, but it's a very talky one. It actually revolves around a bunch of interrogation sequences, so it's just one-on-one conversations, and man is this movie tense. The Standoff at Sparrow Creek.
And they jacked up that burned out truck of yours, and what do they find?
Now this one's got an interesting setup. There is a shooting, I believe, at a police funeral. It does not take place in the movie, but it has just happened. And after this happens, some local militiamen meet up at a lumberyard where they have their stash, their weapon cache. And lo and behold, one of the guns is missing, a gun very similar to the one used in the shooting. This is like the first 10 minutes or so of this movie, and then you launch into a series of interrogations. They suspect one of the men among them is the shooter, and they've got to find out who. James Badge Dale is the lead actor here, and this is really one of his best and strongest performances, or at least he's given a lot to do in this movie. And as I said, it's a very tense thriller that mostly revolves around one-on-one conversations, yet it's written so well, the thing is just pitch perfect, and then has kind of a pitch perfect ending as well. My next pick fits in a similar wheelhouse. It's a low-budget, dark thriller. After that, I've got a highly underrated Clive Owen action flick, a killer heist movie, and two movies that manipulate time in really bizarre ways. But Super Dark Times is one of those dark indie thrillers I love recommending here on the channel. As the title would suggest, this one does get super dark, but if you like discovering little indie thrillers, this is an amazing one. You follow a bunch of teenage boys. I'm not going to say exactly what happens here, but something awful happens. They try to cover it up, and then everything spirals out of control in this chaotic way.
What's happening, friends?
Clive Owen and Naomi Watts both star in The International, which I think is just a highly underrated espionage action flick. Now, the action's not unhinged, it's not over the top, it's kind of old school, but in a really great way. There's an excellent shootout in this movie that takes place in the Guggenheim. Some of you have maybe seen this, or at least remember when it came out. It's not quite as good as like a good James Bond movie or a good Mission Impossible flick, but it's on the heels of movies like that, and with time, it's been, I think, just completely forgotten. I was excited to see it available on Tubi, and it's got a hard R rating. Movies like this often go for PG-13, and I'm happy this one did not. Same goes for my next pick, a heist movie that went for a hard R rating. It also stars Gene Hackman, Sam Rockwell, Danny DeVito, also written and directed by David Mamet. It does feel a bit old school, even older than, when it came out. But in a good way, you know what I mean? It's a good old-fashioned heist movie. I've actually got another movie on this list directed by Stanley Kubrick that has a lot in common with Heist, but I would say fans of the heist genre, even though this one's got a very generic title and kind of a generic plot, it's still excellent stuff. Now, my number 11 selection is not generic. In fact, it has a time manipulation feature that I think was a little bit ahead of its time. It's titled Frequency, and this one, even though the quality's not quite there, it feels a lot like a Christopher Nolan movie. In this movie, Jim Caviezel is operating a ham radio, and he learns there's a particular frequency. I believe the Aurora Borealis is involved in this movie. But there's a frequency he can hit, and he's actually able to communicate with his father over the same ham radio, I believe like 30 years in the past.
Hey, who the hell are you?
Bitch!
What's going on?
Nothing's going on.
His father's played by Dennis Quaid, and so there's not actual time travel in this movie, but the mere fact that they're able to communicate with each other across time makes for an incredibly exciting movie. Now, this does have a grim edge to it, even though it's rated PG-13. He's actually trying to prevent the murder of his mother, or rather, he's trying to solve the mystery of his mother's murder while also giving his father, played by Dennis Quaid, some clues in the past so he can stop it from happening. It's pretty exciting stuff. But that brings us to my number 10 pick, and I'm telling you, we're now in the top 10 here. We've got some killer movies that I just absolutely love. Each one of these movies could have topped some other list, and they're all available for free on Tubi right now. But with number 10, we've got Color Out of Space. This is one of only a few movies directly adapted from H.P. Lovecraft's work. This is based on one of his books. And this is from a director who was kind of mistreated and cast out of Hollywood for decades. This is kind of his big return. For my fellow movie nerds, Richard Stanley directed some great sci-fi movies like Hardware, and then was given the opportunity to do, this is nerdy stuff, The Island of Dr. Moreau, a movie that was then sabotaged by the studio and Marlon Brando, ruined this guy's career and kind of broke his brain, I think, a bit. There's a whole documentary on it. Color Out of Space is his return to directing. I think he did a killer job. Nicolas Cage stars in this movie, but he takes a back seat to how wild this movie actually gets, something that doesn't really happen that often. So you wouldn't quite call this a great Nicolas Cage movie, but it's a superb H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. The story here is you've got a family that live out on a remote farm when a small meteor crashes nearby and it begins changing things. New flowers begin to start sprouting up everywhere, new colors people have never seen before, and just bizarre elements, and then things take a dark twist, and this one gets disturbing. If you have trouble with disturbing things involving children, man, this one just has something that happens to a child that I just found very difficult to watch, especially the way it was filmed. It's science fiction stuff, so it's special effects and things, but oh my god, some of the stuff in this movie is going to be just too much for a lot of you. It's got a really interesting original score, just a lot going for it, but is too much for me to watch multiple times. Now, we'll take a quick break from all the serious stuff for my number 9 pick, which is one of the most fun, awful movies you can watch. Like, there's a lot of those out there. Troll 2 is a personal favorite of mine.
Oh my God!
But none of them are quite as spectacular as The Miami Connection. There's a whole documentary on this one as well. It's titled Friends for Eternity, The Making of Miami Connection. This is a martial arts movie about a band. Their music's hilariously awful. Not only is it hilarious to listen to, but to watch them perform some of the songs in this movie, it's insane. And on top of that, really bizarre plot points, like a long-lost father.
I found my father! Oh my god!
Ninjas. This movie's gorier than you would expect at times, and it just insanely cheesy. I mean, it's one of the cheesiest movies I've ever seen, and I watch a lot of stuff like this. I mean, my goodness, if you grew up watching stuff like Three Ninjas or, just anything like that, you may think this is one of the funniest movies you've ever seen. If you've never watched a terrible movie, ironically, like this before, Miami Connection might be a good place to start. Now, my number 8 selection has got a very low budget, similar to Miami Connection. I mean, it doesn't look much better, but it's an excellent pool hall movie. In fact, it's one of the best movies available about the game of pool, maybe second to The Hustler, and that's Poolhall Junkies. Yes, I actually think this movie is maybe better than The Color of Money. If you can overlook some of the budget constraints, story-wise, it's solid stuff and it's exciting. You've also got a great little role from Christopher Walken in this movie. Fun little fact here, he pulls off a trick shot in this movie that's very difficult. I've actually talked to people who were on set that day for this movie. Apparently he did it in the first shot, and if you watch, you can see genuine surprise on the faces of the people around, including Christopher Walken himself. So that's just a little fun fact. If you play pool at all, you have to see Poolhall Junkies, but even if you don't, this is just an exciting, quote-unquote, sports movie. I know pool's not really an athletic sport, but as far as competition goes, this is a great flick depicting head-to-head competition. Here we are at my number 7 pick, and we've gone through a pretty wide breadth of genres so far, but nothing quite like Only Lovers Left Alive, which is an art house flick with a kind of bizarre romantic tale about 2 vampires. This is actually from director Jim Jarmusch and stars Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston. And it kind of meanders the way a Jim Jarmusch movie does, with little chapters almost like an anthology movie, but this one is glued together with a narrative much more so than most Jim Jarmusch movies are, and it's just a stunning movie. I mean, the way it was filmed is beautiful, and it's got a cool edge to it. Like, Tom Hiddleston is this kind of somewhat famous musician who's secretly a vampire, and it's a slow movie. Like, they spend quite a bit of time pontificating on their lives as vampires, on like the state of music today, all kinds of stuff. And it feels fairly rudderless, and that's the case with a lot of not just art house movies, but specifically Jim Jarmusch. It doesn't really feel as if it's headed anywhere in particular, but it has a lot to say along the way. If you're a fan of vampire movies, watch this one, but be prepared for kind of a slow ride and just enjoy the journey. It's not about the destination with this one. But even if you're not into vampire movies and you just like good, solid art house flicks, this is a beautiful one. Now, I mentioned I had a Stanley Kubrick movie on this list that was very similar to Heist, and it's one of his very first movies. It's still a solid one. It's titled
Give or take a few thousand. I figure the loot on this deal at $2 million.
Now, this one is about the planning of a heist of a racetrack. On a big race day, they're gonna rob the vault. It's a basic setup. You've seen it a bunch of times before, or since this movie came out. This structure has been replicated a lot, but my goodness, it is just, they like nailed it. They nail all the little details of how to pull off a heist, but also how to deliver it. Stanley Kubrick was a legitimate genius, and to watch this movie, for as old as it is, it's got brilliant beats for a heist movie. Explains a lot to you without explaining it to you. There are incredible shots in this movie that I think most people would just overlook. Movie buffs know that, You know, the camera doesn't need to move from one room to the next like that. You've got to build a whole set to do things like that. And directors are still copying things like that today. So The Killing is one of the experiments that like Kubrick built his career on top of. And it's still, like I said, it holds up as a pitch perfect heist movie. It's got a killer ending, it's got twists you will not see coming. Despite the fact that this movie is like 75 years old, you will not see some of the twists coming. It's that brilliant of a flick. If you've got any kind of affection for just either classic movies or heist flicks or Kubrick, you gotta watch The Killing. And for that matter, my number 5 pick is a mind bender that kind of feels like a Kubrick flick at times. Weirder though, it's titled The 13th Floor. Released the same year as The Matrix, the two movies actually have a lot in common, but it's a killer hidden gem. Now this one is a murder mystery that also revolves around cutting-edge virtual reality program. Now this was released in 1999, and sci-fi wise it was quite a bit ahead of its time. We're sort of catching up to this age now though. And there's like a film noir element to The 13th Floor. There's kind of a throwback vibe with the virtual reality stuff, and it ends up making for like an awesome retro sci-fi flick with just loads of twists and turns. Like I said, this one is a mind bender.
None of this is real.
Next up, we've got a revenge thriller from South Korea that is one of a loosely connected 3-part series. This one's titled Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. And this is from Park Chan-wook, the director of Oldboy. It's got a similar grim vibe, but it's more subdued and not quite the spectacle that Oldboy was. Now this is a twisted revenge tale. The story takes quite a while to sort of build up, but my goodness, this is a great one. If you've enjoyed movies from South Korea, this is just a top-notch flick. It is a downer of a movie though. I mean, it is a sad revenge movie at times, at a lot of times actually, but just beautifully shot, kind of like incredible characters, and it is not a boilerplate revenge movie either. It's got a lot more nuance to it than this genre tends to have, which is kind of what sets it apart. It actually has a lot more to say about revenge, I think, than revenge movies tend to say, making this one an upsetting flick, but also a really effective one. My number 3 pick is extremely upsetting as well, but it is just such an amazing flick. It's still worth watching. The Nightingale.
They close. What are you doing? I don't want no trouble.
This takes place in Tasmania, set in the early 1800s. A young woman has her family brutalized by some British officers, and then she spends the rest of the movie basically hunting them down through the Tasmanian wilderness. This is from the same director as The Babadook, and this is not a horror flick, even though it has some horrific scenes in it. Do not misunderstand me. This movie has some brutal moments in it, particularly up front. It's the event that sets her off on this journey, and it's an incredible movie, not just of revenge. Yes, she's hunting these soldiers down, but she's also having to survive in the wilderness. So it's both. You get wilderness survival and revenge in a also very nuanced story. It does not go in directions you're going to expect, yet it always feels very grounded and authentic. It's an excellent, realistic feeling revenge movie that, even though you have to sit through some horrific sequences, ultimately this movie delivers and there is a payoff for patient viewers. Now that was a revenge movie from Australia, and technically my next pick is as well, even though you wouldn't really call Animal Kingdom a revenge movie.
This has got nothing to do with me. Everything has got to do with everyone.
Now you're not in any danger. What do you think we should do?
What's wrong, huh?
What's the mattress?
This is one of the best movies to come out of Australia in this century so far. They even made a TV spin-off series here in the US titled Animal Kingdom. The show was set in LA, starred Ellen Barkin. But Animal Kingdom stars Ben Mendelsohn in a particularly menacing role. Like, he always plays a good bad guy. His character in this movie might be one of his best. You've also got a great little role from Guy Pearce in this movie. But if you're unfamiliar, it's about a family of bank robbers, yet this is not a heist movie. In fact, you don't ever see them pull off a heist. Rather, this is about their family dynamics as this band of criminals. It's all the things that are going on behind the scenes, and it's an incredibly compelling story. Now, this one too, pretty slow paced, takes quite a while for a big payoff, but my goodness, this movie just has a 1-2 punch in it that is absolutely amazing. I've seen it multiple times and it hits me hard every time I see it. Just a truly outstanding drama from Australia. I cannot recommend it enough, but my number one selection on this list has loads of drama, yet also incredible amounts of action and adventure. It's also based on a harrowing true story, a story that's actually really important in the story of human history, and that's Kon Tiki. Now, this is the true story of the expedition led by Thor Heyerdahl to sail a balsa wood raft, that means a raft with no steering, across the Pacific Ocean to try and prove the fact that the Polynesian islands were colonized by people from South America traveling in that direction, not people from Asia. He wanted to show that the currents were such that you could just drift all the way across the Pacific Ocean. There was actually a book and a documentary that came out mid-20th century that are excellent as well, but this movie is breathtaking. As they spend the majority of this movie on this raft out in the middle of the Pacific, basically just trying to survive. There are multiple sequences that are absolutely incredible in this movie. There's one in particular involving a shark that they literally like drag onto this raft. It's absolutely amazing. Whether or not people actually did travel across the ocean that way, these guys did it. And the story is just incredible from beginning to end. I love recommending this movie. But here's a quick recap of the list, along with other places currently streaming these movies, because you may not want to watch the commercials on Tubi, or if you're in one of these other countries, you may have luck finding these movies in some places other than Tubi. Thanks again to Trainwell for sponsoring this video. Again, I have been loving getting in shape with this program. I highly recommend it, but I'm going to keep making videos like this as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this Tubi episode, and you will see me on the next one.